What's the one piece of career advice you wish someone had given you when you were starting out, Chris?
Yeah, so, it's a great question. It's one of those questions that I think about quite often. And, the more that I think about it, it's hard to really pin it down to one piece of advice in particular. But what I keep on coming back to is sort of this idea of building your brand, right? And so when you think about building your brand, it's really about how do you present yourself? How do you conduct yourself? How do you work? All of these things carry weight in your organization, and you might not realize that people are noticing, but they are, so if you're somebody that turns in work that's reliable, you'll be known as somebody that's reliable. And so that's part of your brand, right? And it's building your brand is intentional, so it's something that you have to continue to think about and do. And even when you think about networking is part of building your brand. It's getting yourself out there, and I wouldn't be in this role right now if I hadn't networked and thought about building my brand. So, what I would say if somebody's just starting out, even though maybe a junior analyst or entry-level position, start thinking about that today, because it makes a difference.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career journey that had a significant impact?
Yeah, this is another one that's tough to pin down to just one example, but when I was thinking about this, I really think about failure, to be honest with you. It's that time when maybe you don't get the promotion or you didn't get the role that you were going for. I feel like when I look back on my career now, these were the instances where I actually grew the most from these failures. And this will probably be a good segue into perhaps the next discussion, but it's what you do with that failure and how you learn from it really grows. So I think thinking about pivotal moments in my career is down to those few failures that I had that really taught me.
Yeah, and is there any, you don't have to share, but is there any one of those that stands out the most?
Yeah, for sure. I felt like I was well positioned and ready to move up in my career, and I ended up getting passed over for it, and that's something that that still drives me today. So you reflect back on it and you think about, why did that happen or what happened? And you can't really change that, but you can change what you do moving forward and how you learn from it. So.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what is your go-to strategy for overcoming those?
Yeah, and so I said for that last question, it was a good segue, because that's it, right? How do you learn from those failures and continue to grow? It's okay to fail, but as long as you learn from it, and continue to grow in your career. So everybody fails at some point, even CEO of your company has some failure at some point in his career or her career, but they learned from it. And so, keep going. And that's where your growth comes from. I think about a exercise that I did last year, and it was centered around this idea of a 5-year growth letter. So essentially what you do is today, write a letter to yourself from 5 years ago. And you think about all the things that you've accomplished in those 5 years. And once you start to write this down on paper, it's incredibly cathartic and extremely reflective, and it was really helpful for me. So, for anybody that's listening or watching it there, I would encourage them to try this exercise, and it's really, really insightful to think about, because you might not think right now that you've accomplished so much, but once you start to write it down, last 5 years, you'll really see how much you grew.